Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to South Africa, where, it's just impossible to just have a quiet day and just get on with life. Because yesterday, the government came out and said that Eskom is exempt from basically reporting any financial irregularities or criminal misconduct at Eskom. And with me is Byron, who has actually read through all the documentation, and so he knows more about this than I do. Welcome, Byron, and another day in Africa, my friend.
Yeah, okay. So I think everybody should start off by considering the backdrop of this so that we can actually understand what exactly the government has done and why they've done it. The first is, for those of you who don't know, the ANC government voted against an inquiry into corruption at Eskom. The Director left Eskom and basically told everybody that Eskom was corrupt, that there were key individuals at Eskom that were corrupt. The ANC, Mr. Fix for Call, came out and said, us, corrupt? No, never. That's not us. You must be thinking about somebody else. The electricity minister then came out a couple of weeks ago and basically said it's not corruption that's killing Eskom, it's technicalities, whatever that might be. We still don't know what these technicalities are. And with that all being said, we now have the gazetted regulations, which came out on Friday afternoon, which basically says that Eskom, in terms of its annual or yearly financial reports, doesn't have to disclose what we would class as irregular expenditure. Irregular expenditure, for those who don't know, in political speak, basically means fraud and stealing.
And that has never happened at Eskom, of course, because they didn't pay 200,000 Rand for mops, they didn't pay 80,000 Rand for knee guards, and they didn't spend an inordinate amount of money on toilet paper. I think they were paying close to 1,000 times more for toilet paper than the original price of toilet paper. So all of those things are deemed to be irregular spending. But now, thanks to the government, Eskom doesn't have to disclose any of that to anyone.
Yeah, so the actual regulations themselves in terms of what it allows them to do is actually very, very small. It's like one little paragraph that just says they're exempted for 2 years from having to disclose irregular expenditure at Eskom. Coincidentally, what's happening in the next 2 years, Ramon?
I think there's going to be a huge election in 2024 where the ANC may lose power. I mean, I'm sure it's just coincidental.
I think so too. And what is it currently they're saying is the biggest impediment to an ANC victory?
Stage 6 load shedding.
Corruption at Eskom, right? Gee, I wonder what the motivation of not disclosing corruption at Eskom might be. I'm sure it's nothing. In fact, why don't we actually just have a look what the actual motivation was? Because the ANC, in the form of Gorengwana, came out and actually gave us some actual justification for why he had gazetted this. And a lot of it is due to finances. And you know what? Some of it, I'm not really sure whether it's even legal. But you know what is legal, Ramon? Cryptocurrency. And you know who does cryptocurrency? Bitvice.
If you look at Bitcoin right now, the exchanges are crashing all over the place. Let us not even talk about the bank runs happening in America. And the central banks are printing money faster than ever. Of course, Bitcoin actually fixes this, but it only fixes it if you actually have Bitcoin in your own personal wallets, which is why we support Bitvice, the sponsor of this video. Because Bitvice is the only company where you buy Bitcoin from and they deposit it directly into your personal wallet. So in essence, your Bitcoin is with you, fully in your control and fully safe from any external activity. It's a bit like having gold in your own safe rather than having it somewhere else. And to make it even easier for you to buy Bitcoin, they now have a product called Sat Stacker, which allows you to buy Bitcoin on a weekly or monthly basis, just like a simple debit order. You buy the Bitcoin, it gets deposited directly into your private wallet. So Bitvice is by far the best way and easiest way and safest way to accumulate Bitcoin. So head on over to bitvice.io to set up your account, or just click the link in the description below. And we are back. So Byron, we managed to get a leaked letter from the finance minister to signify his reasons for giving Eskom this exemption. We spoke about this off camera beforehand, and you found quite a few interesting tidbits. So it is up for the audience. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, okay. So if you're not a CEO working in finance, I am, then reading these things is a little bit difficult to decipher sometimes. So let's decipher the bullshit that the government has attempted to explain to us why they have actually done this. So point 2 of the letter actually tells us what they are being exempted from, or what they requested to be exempted from. The first is they don't want to disclose any material losses through criminal conduct and any irregular and fruitless/wasteful expenditure. They also don't want to disclose any criminal or disciplinary steps that have been taken to address this fruitless expenditure. They also don't want anybody to know what losses they've been able to recover. That's what they don't want the public to know. So you may ask yourself, well, why? This is where the actual deciphering comes in. But in a nutshell, in basic language, they're saying that Eskom doesn't have actual controls in place. And these controls mean that they can't actually provide any reporting structure of where their expenditure goes. Either that's because the documentation doesn't exist, or there's not an adequate audit trail. And because of this, they're going to obviously have to disclose certain things. Now, those things that they're going to have to disclose are going to form twofold. The first is he has a load of money we can't account for. And if that is the case and they can't account for him, what they've got to do is they've got to send in an auditor. The internal auditor will come through and go, I don't know where the money is either. And then they're going to have to employ an external auditor. And the external auditor, usually a forensic auditor, is going to come in. He's going to look at all the accounts, all the receipts. And he's going to be like, oh, I don't know where any of this money's gone. It seems to disappear. He's going to do some forensic. He's going to track where it goes. And lo and behold, he may actually figure out where the money went. And I'm not sure that will be very good, because obviously there is a high risk. The public are going to know. It's going to hit the media's targets, and they're going to be publicized everywhere.
Just to follow on that point, Byron, if you look at number 4, they understand that if an auditor has to come into Eskom and actually detail where all the money has been stolen, that by itself, according to point 4 of the letter, states that it will have a risk and a negative outlook for the entire entity's corporate structure. So basically, from what I read in this letter, is that Eskom does not have the skills or capability to know where the money's going. But if they did have the skills and capability to know where the money's going through an auditor, it will look very bad. So best not to do it in the first place. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, which comes on to the second point, where this becomes for me almost slightly questionable in terms of the legality of this. I'm not really sure whether they can actually legally do this, is they do cite in their conclusion why they're doing this, because they say that when they go and disclose all of this wasteful and useless spending, if we know where the money is actually gone, it will damage the creditworthiness of Eskom. In other words, what sane normal individual would buy an Eskom backed bond or buy Eskom debt if you knew how corrupt the place was and where the money was actually going to? And so they want to hide that from potential investors by basically taking it off the balance sheet. Now, I'm not sure that that's actually legal. That might be deemed to be colluding. That might be fraudulent disclosures according to accounting standards. I mean, international accounting standards. But hey, this is South Africa, and we just make the rules up as we go along.
So in principle, if you read the letter, number 1, Eskom doesn't know where the money is. They don't have accounting software. They maybe are using QuickBooks to dictate how a billion-dollar company is doing its books. So they don't know anything. The fact that they don't know anything means they can't actually account for anything either. And by not accounting for anything, and everyone knew they couldn't account for anything, means that it's bad for Eskom. So therefore the government said, okay, well, you can't do it. You don't know how to do it. So we'll just make a rule that you don't have to do it. Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. And Eskom's basically saying they don't want to go out and disclose all these things because, one, it would hold up the actual disclosure reports because they'd have to account for the money before they can issue the reports. And they're like, we don't really know where it is. So we'll have to get forensic people in there. And, this is for the best. Let's just issue these statements in. And we're doing something about it. You trust us, right? You trust us. And the reason they want to do that is because they also want people to invest in Eskom, usually private investors who will buy government-backed bonds. And they know that no one wants to buy those government-backed bonds because, to be frank, no one believes they're going to get paid because Eskom's a shit show.
But apparently hiding the truth from Eskom will make people buy the bonds. So how do you square that hole, Byron? I don't really know, but can you smell that? I think it's the new dawn. It's just around the corner, guys. Reform is almost there. Just another election, another commission of inquiry, another exemption from Eskom. We're almost there, guys. Almost.